So hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining the first Working Families Party Assembly, our monthly virtual membership meeting. We have people calling in from everywhere, and as you can see on the chat, it just keeps on growing. The list of folks from every region of the country. Hey, Andrew in New York. Hey, Diane in Cleveland. Caroline in New Jersey. What's going on? Folks from upstate New York. Stephen from upstate, how you doing? So folks are gonna be rolling in, and I'm gonna try to give as many shout outs as possible and get through this. Again, we're gonna start in the next few seconds. And during this assembly, this is something we're gonna do every month. During this assembly, we'll have an opportunity to talk about current events, to talk about broader themes in our politics, and to get to know one another. So there'll be some opportunity for interactivity, as well as an opportunity for me to share, I think I hear, there might be a few people who are not muted right now. So let's make sure that everybody's muted. Okay, I heard some background noise, great. And for me to share from the party where we are and where we're going. Great, I think we took care of that muting problem. Okay, so again, this is a virtual membership meeting. Consider this a meeting like some of the meetings that I used to experience when I first got involved in organizing, usually in a church basement or in a union hall or in the basement of a grassroots organization. Consider this a virtual version of one of those. So the WFP Assembly gives us an opportunity to hear from leaders from all over our movement to celebrate local wins, and we'll do some of that. We get an opportunity to connect with one another. We who believe in justice, we need a political home. And that's what the Working Families Party is. But we need more than just our commitment to fight to keep us going. We need community. We actually need one another. Think of the WFP Assembly as one of the key support beams in building that political home, the beloved community we're all creating, where people could come together across difference, across our many different regions, across our states, and stand together for justice. This should run, like I said before, around 40 minutes in total. And I hope you'll stay until the end, because we're going to ask for your feedback so we can make the next WFP Assembly meeting even better. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask us to take a moment of silence. Just yesterday, a gunman with a white nationalist manifesto killed one woman and injured others at a synagogue in Poway, just outside San Diego, just minutes away from where I'm talking to you from. The attacks on houses of worship, be they synagogues, mosques, Sikh temples, or Black churches, are stemming from the same sick, far-right white nationalist ideology. For now, let me ask for a moment of silence to grieve for the lives lost. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, each one of our WFP assemblies will have a theme. This is our inaugural assembly, and appropriately, the theme of today's assembly is democracy. In the beginning of each assembly, we'll lay out the contours of the theme. And then we're going to break out into small groups. We're going to hear from folks around the country. So this first address sort of creates a container for the rest of the assembly. So when I was growing up, my parents didn't vote, actually. Now, it wasn't because they didn't care or didn't want to. They read the papers. They had deeply held views that they passed on to me. They were active in the community and in their unions. They didn't vote because they couldn't. They were immigrants with green cards. And I, as the youngest child of immigrants, was the first voter in my family. It wasn't until years after I started voting at 18 that my parents became citizens and got the right to vote. Now, what I want to tell you is about how much they love to vote, how much they delight in it, how much they revel in it. They're in their 70s now, and they still wake up very, very early, like 6:30 at the crack of dawn to vote on election day. In fact, my mother now volunteers as a poll watcher. And they have this excitement like kids on Christmas morning around voting, and they vote in every single election. Because when you don't have something so vital, that's when you know how deeply you need it. That's how you really truly value something often, when you don't have it, when it's beyond your reach. And just take, for example, food. If you don't drink water for a few days, you'll know how essential water is for life. If you hold your breath even for a few minutes, you'll realize how precious the air we breathe every day is. So what does that have to do with WFP? If I had to sum up what the Working Families Party is in 2 words, I would use the 2 words radical democracy. And both of those words are important, radical and democracy. And what does it mean when we put them together? See, democracy doesn't just mean the right to vote. It means the right to control your life, self-determination. It means workers deciding together how it's going to be at work. A union is democracy. It means communities, not just developers, deciding whether we need new luxury housing or affordable housing. It means the people shall rule, all power to the people. And it's why I'm an organizer, because coming together across difference to make common cause and fight for collective interest, democracy, it's also called many things. Some people call that solidarity, some call it love. It's also truly democracy in action. Us organizing is truly how we manifest our democracy. That's why I invite you to come together with me in the Working Families Party, so that we could see each other, recognize each other, connect with each other, heart to heart, around the most intimate and sacred thing imaginable, the future of our families and our communities. It was my parents who couldn't vote, who raised me to know and love democracy, to love the promise of democracy, even when what passes for democracy in our nation still leaves you parched. And if you're on this call, you know our nation's history. Democracy always has been a promise, but a promise always unfulfilled. In the revolutionary moment of our nation's independence, who could vote in our new nation rooted in freedom and democracy? Who? Property-owning white men. Later, white men with property were allowed to participate. After the Civil War ended and after slavery was abolished, Black men technically could vote. And during that very, very small period of history called Reconstruction, many Black men did vote and did participate in their democracy. But then racialized terror snuffed that democracy. And for almost a century, most Black folks couldn't access our democracy. Now, women could vote starting in 1890 in Wyoming, and then eventually 1920 across the country. Except in the South, Black women really couldn't vote any more than Black men could. So not many people know this, but many Native Americans didn't get citizenship and the right to vote until the 1920s. And many Chinese immigrants couldn't become citizens until the 1940s. And the Voting Rights Act passed in Congress in 1965. That's in some of our lifetimes. Just a decade before my parents came from Grenada and Trinidad in the Caribbean to Long Island in New York. Every step on expanding the franchise is taking bravery, struggle, and deep and painful sacrifice. Sometimes people sacrifice with their lives. Often people sacrifice with their lives. It has been motivated by activists demanding the impossible in organizing. That's how our democracy has expanded, even as our democracy still hasn't been realized. It's easy to look at that history and assume we're in a process, an inevitable process, although slow, of becoming a truer and truer democracy, but progress is never assured, never certain, and never made without intense struggle. A study from professors at Princeton and Northwestern University a few years back showed that the opinions of ordinary Americans have effectively no impact on laws made in Congress. Only the opinions of the wealthy, only elite opinions impact Congress. That's not what a democracy should look like. It was just a few years ago that the Supreme Court overturned parts of the Voting Rights Act. It's been a part of a coordinated attempt to roll back voting rights, along with dozens or maybe hundreds of actions taken by Republican state legislatures, from voter ID laws to gerrymandered districts to closing polling places in communities of color. Some of those people, I believe, want very much to go back to a time when only property-owning white folks could vote. My parents taught me to bring everything I have to the struggle for justice. My passion, my brains and intellect, my energy. When I travel around the country meeting with WFP members and leaders, it takes a toll on my body naturally. I've done almost 100 trips in a few months. It's time away from my 2-year-old son, my precious boy. And I do it because I know it's the only way to build the world he deserves. I think we have a duty to fight for democracy, to fight for self-determination, a democracy that includes all of us, because ultimately, I truly believe the people shall rule. Now, I want to introduce to you someone of our first guest, a very special guest, because this is our inaugural guest. We're making history. So I want to introduce to the WFP Assembly somebody who really has made democracy manifest in a significant way in our country and very recently. Someone who's led some of the most innovative work in the nation to expand democracy, fighting to include 1.5 million people kicked out of democracy in Florida. I'm pleased to introduce the political director of New Florida Majority, former State Senator Dwight Bullard.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Coming to you from the streets of Miami, as you can see, literally out the window. And I'm excited to be your inaugural guest. And thank you for for having me on the program, and more importantly, to talk about the work that we're doing here in Florida.
Thank you, Dwight. And I think maybe we should organize some sort of a ritual where we give one person the Keeping It Real Award. And right now you're winning because you're literally calling from the streets of Miami. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, bro. So Dwight, let's just get into it. Some of us already know about the work in Florida, but many of us don't. Could you just help by telling us about the fight for Amendment 4?
So you alluded to it when you talked about the restrictions on democracy for Black people specifically, so Florida put on the books in 1868 a prohibition on the vote for anyone who had committed a felony, that they would be barred from the franchise for life. I want people to think about that. For an act committed on your worst day, you would be prohibited from access to the ballot box for the remainder of your natural life. And so that sat on the books for 150 years, 150 plus years. But in November of 2018, thanks to the hard work of a number of folks, and I have to definitely give a big shout out to Desmond Meade, who was pivotal and integral in making this a reality, because it was his dream, his vision as someone who's a returning citizen, to see this come to fruition. We were able to gather and collect almost 1.2 million petitions to get Amendment 4 on the ballot. And then in November of 2018, 65% of the electorate decided that it was the responsible thing to do to return the ability to vote to these folks. Of course, like many states, Florida isn't going to go quietly. You know, the white supremacist, racist notions of the past aren't going to go quietly, and what we were able to pass in November is currently under attack by the state legislature.
Dwight, could you talk a little bit, maybe just for a minute or even under a minute, about those attacks? Like, what's actually taking place? So many of us rejoiced when Amendment 4 passed, but clearly the work isn't done. So how are folks attempting to block implementation?
Absolutely, and other states may see this as well. What they're trying to do is basically say that not only is it going to be restitution that has to be repaid in order to get your right to vote back, but now any accumulated fines or fees. And the problem with that, the inherent problem with that is that it's becoming a de facto poll tax on individuals who've already waited for a significant period of time to get their right to vote back. More importantly, when you think about those fines and fees, that's everything from the amount of money that they're charging you as a returning citizen to wear an ankle monitor, or the amount of money being charged for a urine test, to test your, to test for drugs. All those things are accumulated fees that people don't recognize. And what they're saying is that someone who now is returning from incarceration is now responsible to pay off all those fines and fees before they're able to vote.
Got it, Dwight. And then really in the just 10 seconds, maybe could you just share with us what you all are doing and how others could support the work of fighting back the attempts to slow down implementation?
Well, right now we're in the midst of planning a mass mobilization on May the 1st to tell the legislature that we're not going to take it anymore. More importantly, we're looking, if they do unfortunately pass it, to engage in a legal battle. And partners like the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center will be right there at the forefront. So please, folks, as you're keeping tabs on this, don't only just stand by for the ultimate victory that we want to claim, but feel free to get in the fight.
Great, thank you. And I got two last questions for you. I want to get a little personal. Part of WFP Assembly is, of course, talking about the issues, but also for us to fellowship with one another. And so if you could just share with us, what brings you to this work? Why is it so important to you to be in this fight?
Similar to you, family. We all sort of share this common thread around the notion of justice. And for me, my mother's politicization started when her younger brother was killed by white gang violence in Philadelphia in the 1960s. That inspired her to later run for office and be engaged. And part of that story, that same thread of story, is what created the politicization for me. The killing of Trayvon Martin in 2012, for me, was more than a catalyzing moment. I was already in public office, but it really infuriated me in a way that created a radical need for change, not only in Florida, but in this country. And so those are kind of two key moments that speak to my history and why I'm involved in this struggle.
Great. Thank you so much, brother. And thank you for sharing that. So much of our history is a history that's both woven with trauma, like the personal trauma your family felt, but then the amazing human ability or capacity to translate that trauma into resistance, into beautiful resistance. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. And I have one last question, Dwight. Would you join me and do the great honor tonight of joining as a dues-paying member of the Working Families Party?
Count me in the fight, and count me in as a member of WFP.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we appreciate all the work you're doing and the work in Florida and the action around May 1st, that mobilization. We'll definitely send everybody here information about how they can support even remotely. So thank you so much.
Certainly.
All right. Thanks again, Dwight, and we're gonna move on. So next, we're going to give all of you the opportunity to get to know each other, building our beloved community, building trust across differences. Again, is the only way, let me say it again, the only way we're ever going to be strong enough to defeat the billionaires and the white nationalists. Hate is fought and overcome through solidarity. In just a second, we're going to break up into small groups for just a moment. If you're in the Zoom application or on your phone, either on your phone or on your computer, you'll be in a small group facilitated by a volunteer to get to know each other. If you're using the web application, you'll stay in the main room where Ava will lead you for this next piece together. And so the breakout group should be starting any moment now.
Hi, my name is Ava. I'm currently in Brooklyn, New York, but I'm from San Francisco, and I'm going to be leading this breakout group. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, so as Maurice said, we're doing breakout groups on all of these calls so that we can come together and create community, even though we're all, we're spread out across the country in this space. Anyone who wants to can share, what resonated for them from what we heard so far, what really got them in their gut, what impacted them, and, perhaps how they want to bring it back to their own community where they're working. So just to make sure that this is a space where everyone is welcome. I want to make sure that we're all using I statements, that we're trying to speak from the heart rather from our head. We talk from our heads, we talk intellectually all day long, or at least I do in my job. And in this place, I really want to be able, for us to get to know each other to whatever degree possible. We're going to avoid giving advice. We're also going to be kind of mindful of time because we only have so many minutes left, and I want everyone who sorry, would you mind going on mute if you would mind? If you're not speaking, please go on mute. Thanks. Awesome. And yeah, so I just want to be mindful of time. So we're gonna try to keep our statements to just 2 minutes or less. And I'll start and go briefly. It was just honestly really, really lovely to hear Maurice. This was what was mostly sitting with me as I was listening to Maurice. It was so nice having someone talk about community, and I just love MLK's beloved community phrase really so much for the first time in kind of a while, because I work in politics, and sentiments like love and your soul and the MLK idea of a beloved community where you care about every member of your community, even if you don't know them personally, just as you would if they were yourself, if they were your kid, if they were your brother. That is why I organize. I'll get a little bit personal here. I come from a family where my parents, my family system's a pretty isolated, pretty lonely group of folks. My parents are folks who don't really have friends, don't have siblings who they speak to, don't connect a lot to people around them. And the first time that I learned that how impactful and powerful it was to care about folks around you as much as you did yourself was in organizing spaces, and that's why I'm here now. So it's kind of just a breath of fresh air, a drink of water or something to have Maurice ground this space that way. So I don't want to take up all the time. I want to let other folks, whoever wants to, share what kind of got them in their gut about what's just shared, come forward and say what they have to say. So yeah, I'm going to open it up for conversation.
Hello, good afternoon. Good evening. Is someone here?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I just want to put the video on so you guys can see me. My name is Khalil Anderson, and I am super excited to be working actively with the Working Families Party, with this process. So one of the reasons why I'm engaging myself in this process is to learn more about, third parties that have significant influence in our countries and that significantly helping elect leaders across, our country in spaces where ideas are still, at the cornerstone of their beliefs, while also maintaining a healthy relationship with many others across different party lines. And 2 months ago, I decided that I was going to run New York State Assembly in the 36th district in New York because I'm tired of politics as usual. I'm tired of the party politics that really take away the election process from many thousands and thousands of residents, across this district and across New York City through secretive elections, through selection processes and not election processes. And so I'm a change candidate. I am somebody looking to really pound the pavement and speak to voters, speak to individuals about the real core issues that are impacting residents in this neighborhood. I'm so excited to learn more about the Working Families Party and how I can engage with them in that process.
And we should be happy with that.
Oh, the writing's right on time.
It's not it's not, he doesn't talk to you. That was a movie.
Everybody, please put yourself on mute. Thank
Okay.
you.
That was all from me.
Hey, everybody coming in from your small group. Thank you so much. Thanks. And that 8 minutes did not feel nearly sufficient. When we finally get a chance to kind of share our stories, it's just amazing how quickly the time goes. Great. Looks like everybody's muted. Great. So let's keep it moving. And every one of these assemblies, we're going to have an opportunity for folks to dig in and share our stories and share our struggles across regions, across states, across difference, so that we could weave together this uncommon solidarity, right? And so we're going to keep on coming back to this space in order to build community. Great. So also, I really want to appreciate, I was in a small group, and Phil was sharing. Phil is based in Albany, New York, and he was sharing about I think it's 2004 Albany County district attorney's race, and how pivotal that was into bringing him into the work, and specifically bringing him to Working Families Party. And in that race, you know, the Working Families Party was able to primary a Democratic district attorney that was a sort of tough on crime sort of Democrat that was locking people up, you know, abusing the mandatory minimum sentences, supporting, you know, draconian laws like the Rockefeller drug laws. And the Working Families Party used that as an opportunity to take that person out, and the party did. And so again, stories like that help us understand why we're in the fight, right? This is not about sort of the political sort of transactional games, about real people's lives. So every month, we're going to highlight a local victory or a local campaign and get to know the people behind it. Last month, our local partner in Chicago, United Working Families, had an incredible wave of victories, electing new transformative leaders to the city council, beating the powerful political machine in Chicago. So I'm thrilled to introduce our next guest, Rossana Rodriguez Sanchez, a leader in United Working Families and newly elected member of the Chicago Board of Aldermen. Rossana, thank you for joining us.
Sure, thank you for having me.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
So if you could please share your story.
Of course. So my name is Rossana Rodriguez. Yesterday, finally, the incumbent called me to concede. It was a really long and hard fight, but we won, and now we have a seat in City Council. My story, I am from Puerto Rico. I am the daughter of a community organizer. I had to go to my first protest when I was 6 years old. We were protesting for water. We didn't have running water in our neighborhood. Because a Navy base that was established in a nearby town, a US Navy base, was taking our water from the river that was supposed to serve us. So we had to organize and we had to protest a lot, and we ended up getting our water back. But it took the whole community to come together, and it was my first lesson on the idea that in order to get access to the resources that belong to us, we have to make sure that we organize to articulate our demands and get those resources back. So that was very early in life, and then I continued to organize throughout my life against privatization in Puerto Rico, against the US Navy bombing Vieques. We had to organize a lot. I became a teacher. I had to leave Puerto Rico because of austerity. I came to Chicago alone. And I ended up being a part of a campaign for a teacher 5 years ago, and we were 17 votes away from a runoff with the incumbent. Now, the incumbent, Deborah Mell, is the daughter of Dick Mell, who was the alderman for 38 years, and after 38 years, he retired and he appointed his daughter, or Mayor Rahm Emanuel appointed his daughter. So this ward has been under the power of a really entrenched Chicago machine. And we decided to challenge that 4 years ago. We didn't quite get the seat, but what we did do was organize. After we didn't get the seat by 17 votes, we didn't get into a runoff. We decided to found a 33rd Ward Working Families, and we have been organizing for the last 4 years around immigration, around housing, and around education. And those 4 years of organizing, of putting referendums on the ballot, like the Lift the Ban on Rent Control referendum, which we won with 70% of the vote in every district that we were, in every precinct that we were able to put it. The moratorium on charter schools, for example, these were very important fights that matter to the people in our community, and that allowed us to train volunteers, that allowed us for people to get to know us, and to develop a lot of leadership. So 3 years later, I was asked to run by the organization that I have been doing all this work with, and it took a little bit, but I ended up deciding that in order for us to be able to have access to resources and we need to have people in places of institutional power. Those two things go together, right? We need to organize at the grassroots level, and we need to make sure that we're growing our own candidates and that we are building them up so that they can get access to institutional power that will throw then the power line to the movements, right? So that's what happened. We're super excited that we are not going to have any more males in city council after 44 years. And we're going to have the first Latina ever representing this ward, which is 52% Latinx. And at the same time, I'm going to be the only Latina woman in city council. So we're really, really happy about this big achievement, and we have just made history.
Wow, thank you so much. I know I feel inspired after hearing you. Thank you so much for all of your work. And also, thank you for telling that story, because that to me is a story about organizing, right? Like, you didn't just magically come out of nowhere to win your seat. You were deeply accountable and deeply focused on building movement. And that's why you're making history in Chicago. And so I just, again, you know, if I could just bottle up the energy and expand that all over the world, all over the country and the world, then we'll be well on our way to transforming our politics.
We're doing it.
And the last, I do have one last question, Rossana. Would you give us the honor of joining as a dues-paying member of Working Families Party?
I am a member.
You're already a member. Well,
yes.
Reaffirm your membership to the world. And we thank you. We thank you so much for your membership.
Of course.
Great. So thank you again, Rossana. And what an incredible journey and incredible victory. I believe there's so much more to come in Chicago. And if you think about the entrenched party politics in Chicago and what's happening from the bottom up, anything is possible. I also believe that we can make the same type of change in other communities, in other cities, and in other states, and we need to. There are WFP candidates in cities from Denver to Philadelphia and many, many more. There are WFP candidates making plans for state legislatures and Congress, defeating Trump in every corner of the country. There might be somebody that should mute, so if we could just make sure all the lines are muted. The forces against us are strong. And there's no one who's going to come and save us, right? It's really upon us, upon our communities to determine for ourselves the terms of our struggle. How strong a movement we have, that's also up to us. It's about all of us together, coming together and sharing all of our capacities, both individually and collectively. So at this moment, I'd like to ask each and every one of us, that includes you, and you, on this call, if you feel that this space that we're creating together either is or can be home, if it feels like you may perhaps have found in part or in whole some of your people, if this is the team you want to take this battle with, and if this is the group of folks where you want to celebrate your victories and sometimes lick your wounds, and also to lift up when we fail. if this feels like this could possibly be the makings of that home, if that does, then I want to invite you, like I invited Dwight, and like Rossana has already taken this on, to become a WFP member, right? And so if you have 10 on it, if you could contribute 10 a month or more, that establishes you as a WFP member. So if you're on the phone and you don't see the link and everything else, then what you could do right now is text the word member to 738-674. So you go on your phone and you put in the text box the number 738-674, and you text the word member to that. It'll take you directly to a page where you could sign up with your dues. And if you're on the computer right now, you could just click the link that's posted in the chat box on the right side, and you'll get your WFP membership card in about a week. Now, we have hundreds of thousands of supporters, but if I'm gonna be real, and if folks know me, they know I always try to keep it real. We depend mostly on folks who are deeply aligned with us, our members. So when you sign up as a member, you're signing to give just a little bit of your capacity, a little bit of your money, and a little bit of your time. And through everyone's little contribution of money, time, dreams, hopes, we're weaving together and building a container for our collective vision, a political home that we all own, that we all co-own. That's ours. That's not funded by the oligarchs. That's not funded by the millionaires and billionaires. That's funded by us, by our money, by our time, by our passion, by our ingenuity, and a very hyper-local grassroots democratic process. This is not a top-down party. This is a grassroots party that needs to rely on the grassroots contributions, time, intellect, savvy, swag, money, joy, in order to build it. So if you're already a dues paying member, thank you. So if you're already a dues paying member like Rossana, thank you so much. If your dues have lapsed, please join right now by clicking the link or texting. If you're ready to join now, and you haven't been a member, or if you're encountering us for the first time, please say so in the comments. Just say, I got 10 on it, or I'm joining now, or I'm already signed on, or just make an affirmative statement in the comments if you're signing on and if you're joining. We want to celebrate you as you join. You could also make an affirmative comment if you're already a member. But for the folks who are able to comment on the comment box, please do so. I'll just wait a moment for folks to finish texting. Again, the number to text is 738-674, and the word to text is member. Okay, so but before we end the call, and we're ending soon, we're landing the plane, and I see, let me look in the chat box. Great. Autumn, thank you. Sarah, thank you. Kendra, thank you. Bright, I salute you for being a sustaining member. Stacy, $20 a month, I salute you. This is how we build and co-own our own political movement. By 10 and 20 and $5 and $40. These contributions, but not just money, our hearts, our time, our presence. So thank you so much. Great. So before we close, and we're closing now, I want to introduce you to two new WFP members from Washington, D.C. I want them to tell you a little bit about why they joined. So Travis and Lindsey, if you're on the line, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Travis. I live in the Ward 7 neighborhood of Washington, D.C. I'm a 12-year resident. I am a Working Families Party member because we need to expand the power of progressives here to win things like affordable childcare for all. I just held a house party, a working families house party this morning. So it's been a real WFP day for me. And I had 17 people in my living room. We were strategizing, how are we as new working families party members going to take on the entrenched power and stop dealing with the current role of elected officials pitting good causes against good causes with limited amounts of money. We know that by taxing the billionaires, the very rich right here in DC, and making sure that things like when marijuana is legalized this fall in DC, the money appropriated from that will go back to serve those who were impacted the most by it being criminalized. So universal childcare for all is what brought me into Working Families Party. And I'll turn it over to Lindsey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsey Jones-Renaud. I'm really excited to be here. I am also in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been in D.C. for about 15 years now. I am the mom of 2 little kids, ages 2 and 5, both little girls. I'm a feminist, and I work on global feminist issues. I'm a facilitator. And I'm white. And one of the things that I've been going through a process recently over the past few years is really unlearning white feminism. And so it's really humbling and honoring to be in this space with such diverse and representative leadership and membership. I joined Working Family Party because, like I mentioned, I have 2 young kids. After I had my kids, I just faced a ton of struggles. I was living in a city I didn't have any family around. I didn't have a community and the support system. And it was a real struggle. It was a real struggle to balance trying to figure out life with kids and how to keep them alive and the expense of childcare and all of that. And so I really, really feel strongly in the Birth to 3 Act and making sure that everyone have the resources that they need. Childcare has been so amazing for me and my family, and just making sure that our early childhood educators have the resources that they need and that they're being paid fairly. And also, kind of like what Travis was saying, we in DC, we have majority Democrats in DC Council, and our mayor is Democrat. They say they're progressive, but they're not. They're not passing equitable policies. There's massive displacement. There's massive police violence. Our schools are underfunded. And these are all people that say they're progressive. And I want to change that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Travis and Lindsey. And I'm so very excited of what you're building in DC. You know, the work that you all doing, you know, I came down to DC a few weeks ago, and the work that you've been building just over the past few months is just super exciting. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your victories there. So I'll only say it once more. I'm inviting every single person, just like Travis and Lindsey, who have taken the journey to link faiths with one another across difference and link faiths with all of us, to become a member, right? And as a member, we're building an institution that we co-own. One of the challenges, and one of the things that we heard last election, is that the system is rigged, that these institutions, that these political parties, they have rigged rules. So our voices never get heard. What if we built a party from the ground up with our sweat equity, with our ingenuity, and with our small dollar donations, so we could have a say, so we could decide which policies would advance a true working people's agenda? We have that opportunity right now, and in a moment where it is a moral prerogative and requirement that we take that opportunity. So again, folks, just text the word member to 738-674. And if somebody could put the link back in the chat box so folks could sign up. I think I saw Antonella sign up for $20. Thank you so much. Amy got 10 on it, thank you. So we see all of you. You're Joe with 25 a month, thank you. So we see all of you. You know, these little donations, every single one of them, these are the donations, these are so precious because these are the things that allow us to weave together and cohere our party. So thanks again to our guests, Dwight Bullard and Rossana Rodriguez Sanchez, and thanks to the hundreds of you who joined tonight in our inaugural WFP Assembly, and especially to everyone who signed up as a dues-paying member. It means the world to me and all of us, and it's how the world we desperately need will be built. Tomorrow, we'll send a survey to ask what you thought about this call and how we can make it better. You could also submit ideas or topics for guests and ideas for themes. The WFP Assembly is going to happen every month on the last Sunday of the month. So mark Sunday, May 26th on your calendars right now. I hope you'll come back. And another thing, if everybody here could commit to bringing at least 3 friends, just put in the chat box 3, right? Because we want this to grow exponentially every month. I know I could already think in my head who my 3 friends are. There are 3 people who should be on this call right now who aren't, who will be on May 26th. If every one of us does that, we will, in a very organic, people-centered, relationship-centered way, grow this movement. Great. So I want to close now with something that I'm borrowing from my comrades with the Movement for Black Lives. In just a moment, we're going to unmute everyone's line. Not just yet, but in a moment, we're going to unmute everyone's line. And we're gonna hear like a cacophony, a symphony of hundreds of voices rising all at once. So before we unmute your line, I want you to channel this idea of solidarity. And I want you to channel the intense trauma and sorrow that many people are feeling this weekend, triggered by this white supremacist attack. And I want you to just sort of center on solidarity. And when we unmute, just say the first words that come to your mind so we could create that cacophony of solidarity together. So I'm gonna count to 3 and then we're gonna unmute. 1, 2, 3.
Solidarity.
Inspiration.
Solidarity.
Speaking out.
Inspiration.
Solidarity.
Solidarity forever. Have a blessed
Solidarity forever.
Bye, everybody.
Phenomenal.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.